Hello everyone, and welcome to Whitetail Driven Solutions YouTube channel. We are bringing you tips, strategies, and tactics to help you and your property be more successful. We not only invite you to subscribe to our channel, but also hit the notification button to be notified when we release new videos.
Hey guys, tonight's topic is trail camera placement. We are inside tonight. Michigan, we got hit with about 3 to 6 inches of snow last night. So we decided to stay in tonight and bring you this video from inside the warm house. Besides over playing Fortnite, we got a little basketball, college basketball, and on TV, and we're sitting in front of the fire. So tonight's video is the importance of trail camera placement. Seems like the industry has really went to a all of your strategies focusing around the trail camera. So there's some good and some bad to that. Using as much as we have, I think I've got 9 or 10 of them active right now. And so this year, what I did is I kind of stepped into a pattern here that we wanted to try a couple of different things, things that I have had in the past, seen in the past, but never really did any research to see what one did versus the other. So this year, what we did is we tried to set these cameras not only in our transition areas off the food plot that we like to set up, these staging areas, but we also took and put some of these plots and some of these licking branches that you see us using on the edge of the plots, and we kind of gathered the information at the end of the year to tell us what what that was, or what that information had showed us. So at the end of the year, after putting all this together, collecting all the footage, what we have proved is something that we figured that I had proof before of, but now seeing it, it kind of brings it full spectrum here, and makes you really realize what the trail camera world has done to taking that privacy away from a baiting site or the food plot. So, and by what I mean by that is the focus that I've always tried to do on these is, especially on these small parcels, is trying to take, if you have a sanctuary area that you do not go into, or a bedding area that none of us want to enter into after it's created, and especially during the year, whether that's a buck bedding area or a doe bedding area, these camera locations are crucial. We all know, other than if you've had the capability of getting these cell cams up and active, what you have to do is you have to go in and pull these cards, as everyone knows. The problem with that is that creates foot traffic, that creates scent, that creates pressure. So what we've done, and as I'm designing these properties, I'm always trying to keep as much pressure off these small parcels, or any parcel, but especially the small parcels, really keep that pressure off these properties. And that ties into the whole placement of these trail cameras. So this year, we put the emphasis on some of the locations that are in these transition areas with the licking branches. And what we were able to find, what we found was, and we proved was that those locations where I always recommend that these stand locations are off the food plots, whether it's rifle or bow. And there's different things that tie into that. Client that I put together last year, his kids hunt with him, and he wanted something comfortable, so we did go with an octagon blind on the food plot, but it's a situation where it's not overhunted. And keep in mind, guys, this research that we're talking about tonight is based on high pressure states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, some of the eastern states, New York, Pennsylvania, and even out on the west coast or the east coast. So these high pressure areas, you just cannot get away with the stuff and the steps that you can get away with in the Midwest, in these I hate to call them these destination, these dream states, but because I think there's like I've always said, there's a lot that we can learn from those states. But using that dream state title, let's say, as all these Midwestern states, what you're going to find is those states are unpressured. The hunter numbers are way lower than what we have here in Michigan, let's say, and you can get away with a lot more. You can go into a food plot once, twice, 3 times a week. You can blow stuff off those food plots and still get away with it. When you're here in Michigan, like this topic here, is you have to, if you get to a certain point where you're watching the placement of a food plot, or not only at the food plot, but the camera on the food plot, so your camera is not detected you're in a very high pressure location, and you just can't overlook these steps, and you can't get away with this nonsense when, you know, property after property after property, these small parcels are all doing this, and these deer are getting super high pressured. You have to look at these steps, and you have to look at them with, you know, proof. So that's what we did this year, so we could have some footage coming to you guys to prove to you guys that when on these client properties that we're working on, that this is really a fact and this really happens. And if you can take this fact out of the equation, your chances will go up because of it. So what we found is putting those trail cameras on the edge of those food plots can be super destructive. It's not only that the deer are seeing them, you know, physically seeing the camera, but they're seeing like a flash or even you know, these I've switched a lot of our cameras this year to the DRT, the Wild Game Nation, the DRT Extremes, and it's just a red, you know, a red light that goes off. It's not like the old 35mm cameras where it flashes in your face, and there's some, obviously there's some digital that still do that as well, but you know, there's not much flash, or there's not much glow or anything on these new cameras. But the problem is what we're finding in these cameras and these pictures that we're getting is it's still something is notifying. They can still see the red flash, they can still see the red glow. They're still seeing something in these on these cameras. Not every deer, but a lot of these deer that are walking into these food plot locations will turn and look towards this camera every time that they walk into it. Well, before they even walk to the licking branch, they initially make contact with that camera. So what that does, it might not seem like a lot, but when they're especially if you're hunting a small parcel like here in Michigan, or like we said, you know, Wisconsin, Minnesota, where they're, you know, in a 24-hour period, they might be on 3 or 4 different parcels with food plots, and they're getting these flashes in their face, and they're never comfortable. There's never a time that these deer have a relaxation, or they can get away and they can just go to feed. And you know, these bucks, whether they're immature or mature bucks, can chase does, and they just don't have the drama. And that's a lot of my business and a lot of my design, and that's something that I've, you know, trying to teach the kids along the way here. Is there's so much value in having an unpressured hunting situation. We're trying to really prove this with these cameras on how much these can be effective, but how much they can also hurt your farm and hurt your setups. So what we've done is, like we said, we put those on the edge of the food plots for a reason, and we even intentionally set some stands up on the edge of it to see if they would make contact with them. Some obvious, you know, as soon as you walk into the field, you can see the tree stands, you can see the blinds, just to prove along the way here that this really does happen. And what we have found is by moving those cameras off of the food plot, whether it's, you know, it could be 10-20 yards off these food plots, in a entrance, in a corridor, in a you know, a little funnel area that comes up in there, a staging area right before the food plot. By moving those cameras and those licking branches off the edge of those food plots, we're getting deer going right directly to the licking branch. We're getting them stopping there. We're getting their pictures. They are, and what we try to do is kind of know where they're coming in from, so you can hide it. So maybe it's the deer walking past it, so you're getting that first initial picture is a 3/4 ring away, and they're actually looking away from it. And yes, they will come in and out of it, but you know, anywhere that you can position these cameras so they're not right face level, they're up a little bit higher, they're on a tree that is bigger than the camera itself, to hide them and to take them out of that visual eye plane of a deer. It's a huge step. So what we found is, by moving them off the edge, putting them in these staging areas, in these corridors, these buck travel corridors, what we have found was that it took the stress level right away. So, and the reason that we're doing this is, obviously going into the spring, I'm going to be selling the parcel that I'm on now, and we're buying a piece, and we're going to set all this stuff up on as kind of a research property. So we're going to continue this, and then we're able to bring this stuff to you guys. But these are steps that I've been using myself through guiding, through taking guys hunting, through designing these properties all over the country, and now being able to actually put this onto footage and show you guys. It's actually it makes sense. Now, I know there's a lot of guys out there that are going to say it goes against all the rules that we've been taught. You plant a food plot just because it's this opening, and you put the trail cameras on the edge of it, and you put the blinds on the edge of it, and that's how everybody hunts. Everybody gets away with it. But what I ask you to do this year is to challenge yourself by looking at the number of guys that were doing it last year, and the number of guys that filled tags last year when they were doing it, and you start seeing a pattern in these high pressured states where that is a link that needs to be taken out of the equation. And the more that you overstep this this process, I think that it just adds to the pressure instead of taking your farm and your area out of it. And a couple of examples that I have, we go the extra mile. We all do this. We go the extra mile every year to go in and check these trail cameras and try to be undetected, scent free, spraying your boots down, going to these cards and pulling them and getting in and out really quiet so you don't blow nothing. But then that same day, we'll walk out in a food plot with tennis shoes on or drive our four-wheelers out in the middle of a food plot and have the gas and the oil, and it adds to the scent. And then you're checking the cards, and it's something that I think this food plot world it's a way of ease for people, and they just feel that, and I see it all the time. I see it on farm after farm after farm. They're trying to replace it with the bait pile, and they've heard that their buddy, whether it's here or in a Midwestern state, plants these food plots, and then you just hunt over them and you kill these ginormous deer, and everybody's happy. Fact of the matter is that doesn't happen. That doesn't cut it with these steps that a lot of these farms here in Michigan and some of the states in the Midwestern states that we're on, or these farms in the Midwestern states, we see this all the time. And it's a step that you need to treat these food plot areas with the same ability that you're treating everything else, is just making sure that you don't overlook these steps to keep those plots undetected. So what we're doing is, like we said, we're putting these on the edge. We're using these cameras on these licking branches. We're seeing these deer come in. We're seeing these deer pick the cameras off. We're seeing them not come in until after dark. So the way to cure that, I've asked, okay, so if you're recommending that we don't put these trail cameras on the edge of the food plots where that's our destination food plots, and this is where these deer are eating at night, how are we taking inventory, or how are we taking pictures? That's where we're using these licking branches off the edge in the travel corridors, in these staging areas before they get there. So it's a bypass, so you're getting unpressured pictures of them. And there might be 2 or 3 entrances into these food plots, and you should have one on all these entrances into the food plots, so you're not creating extra pressure on these food plots. So once they get there, they are eating, they are chasing does, the does are comfortable. You want to create a safe haven, just as if you would setting aside a portion of your property aside as a sanctuary. You want that food plot to be a sanctuary. You want that food plot to be an untouched, unpressured. So once it's planted, once you're there for the summer and everything's in place going into fall, stay away from them. Take these cameras off the edge of these food plots, and I think you'll be shocked with what you're going to find. So just in review, pull the cameras off the edge, put them in the travel corridors, use these 360-degree licking branches, and just make sure that you're keeping that area untouched, unscathed, and making sure that pressure is low. And by doing this, I think you'll be pretty shocked at what you find. Thanks, guys.